about me. No, you wanna tell me why I'm waiting for someone that couldn't give a fuck about me. No. tell me. No, you wanna tell me why I'm waiting for someone that couldn't give a fuck about me. No, you wanna tell me why I'm waiting for someone that couldn't give a fuck about me. No, you wanna tell me why I'm waiting for someone that couldn't give a fuck about me. No, you wanna tell me why I'm waiting for someone that couldn't give a fuck about me. No, you wanna tell me why I'm waiting for someone that couldn't give a fuck about me. No. What I got to do?
You are the person that you desire to be. There was a point where I wanted to be the villain, and it's not fun, bro. It's not fun. People it doesn't attract anything that you truly want. No one can tell you who to be. So in purpose, you have to create your own purpose. You get to be anybody you want to be.
we've made a justification for an evolutionary biologist to not talk about evolutionary biology because it's like insensitive.
No. He's free to talk about it, but I'm also free to scrutinize the implication by which, like, why is he demanding that this is now the time to bring it up?
Well, because people want to have a
response to a
conversation about like
disagreement.
race and stuff, right? So wouldn't this be, if he was ever going to do it, like that would be...
I think it's a little bit unfair to characterize it as like, oh, people just want to have a discussion about race. Like,
That's true. They didn't want to have a discussion about race. They wanted to force white people off the campus using social pressure.
I don't see a problem with telling those people, yo, shut the up. Like, because you don't have any interest in actually engaging in a debate. If someone's out there and saying, trans people should be genocided, and you shoot that person and you take that person off the face of the earth, I don't think that's inherently a bad thing.
My name is Erin, and I am here to debate if wokeness has gone too far or not.
Okay, my earlier undefeated conversation topic was that wokeness has obviously gone too far because I think progressives... Obviously.
Okay.
Slow down. Obviously, wokeness has gone too far because progressives are really bad at engaging other people in conversation topics. I think that there's like way too much of like a ideological orthodoxy that's like enforced around like any area that progressives get their hands on. Go.
Okay, so I'm less interested in making any sort of, I guess, like positive argument. I'm just going to say that I think you're basically the one putting forward the positive argument that like, this has gone too far. I'm not even going to make any prescriptions as to that. I'm just going to say I think that premise is entirely false. And the biggest problem that I have with this conversation is that can you concretely define what you mean by wokeness?
Yeah, so I think that progressives, through a lot of arguments surrounding, have you ever heard of the paradox of tolerance?
Yes, that if you're too tolerant of intolerance, you're going to create a society like Nazi Germany because you're going to let it be overrun by people who would take advantage of that.
Exactly. That through that argument of the paradox of tolerance, progressives have essentially created the system that allows them to get rid of all dissenting opinion because the dissenting opinions themselves represent like a threat to discourse or democracy or woke values or whatever.
Okay,
that's like the specific thing I'm kind of like pointing at.
Okay, can you give me an example of like wokeness run amok that you think is problematic, or if it were to become like a broader social trend, would be some sort of social contagion? Yeah,
so sure. So some of the things that I was kind of looking at earlier, so on the macro level, it's like the rigid enforcement of like progressive values, and if there's any deviation, you get bucked by the system or you get like, excised or whatever. For micro examples, I would say that Brett Weinstein at Evergreen College was an example of this.
Can I stop you? What do you mean by bucked by the system?
So if you're in school, people will try to like cancel you or get you kicked out. If you're like a faculty or administrator, people ask for your resignation or make it hard for you to work. If you're a researcher, people won't want to work with you or publish your stuff like that.
Okay, so like threats to livelihood is
yeah,
what
basically,
you're
yeah. Lots of cultural pressure, lots of social pressure. Sometimes direct like pressure from staff, but lots of social and cultural pressure.
Okay, and then
so like I think Brett Weinstein at like Evergreen College was like a pretty good example of that.
Okay. Why?
Where I think Brett's arguments were, even if you disagreed with them, I think they were entirely reasonable.
What were his arguments?
He felt like, are you familiar with the Evergreen College situation?
Yes, I am, but I'm interested in hearing your characterization of it, so why don't you explain it since you brought it up?
Okay, I learned all about it in the Red Pill community, shit test and everything, so that's good.
Nice.
Okay,
sounds good. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so my understanding was that traditionally at this school, there were days, or there was like one day a year where I think it was specifically black students would take a step back and let everybody have like a day and see like, well, this is what it's like when minorities are missing, and then they do like a off-campus event or something. And they wanted to switch it up where they were saying, well, we're going to ask white students to leave, or white faculty or white people to leave college this day for, I don't even know what the justification given there was, but I think Brett sent out an email where he was disagreeing, and he was saying like, I think it's a bit different when you're asking white people to leave. I don't agree with this. I don't want to partake in this. And through that email being published and then disseminated to the student body, people got this idea that there were a lot of ideas, but basically people started to show up at his class outside. They were, I don't know if I say threatening him, but they were like screaming at him, shouting at him. They really wanted to fight over him being like racist and stuff like that. And eventually it blew into a thing where, I don't know if he ended up settling with the college before he left or whatever, but he basically left the college because of all the pressure.
Yeah, I know about this, unfortunately, because he has taken himself on a media parade.
Yes.
And will go on to any podcast that will let him rehash the story, even though it literally happened forever ago.
Yep.
Do you know what the contents of those emails were that he said in response to his disagreement to the, like, they free of white people on campus or whatever?
Yeah, we actually, I read all of them, I think a couple months ago, again, because we brought it up, but I don't remember, I can't recite it word for word.
Okay, I can't either, but I do remember that what he did say to this organizer was that he would be happy to provide a
forum for discussion or something, I think, or?
Yes, do you know what the topic was going to be?
What was the topic? I don't remember.
Race and how it coincides with evolutionary.
Like, oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, so he was basically going to. He was interested in exploring like race realism.
Okay. He's an evolutionary biologist. It's an appropriate topic for him to explore, right?
Right, but given the context of why he's bringing up that he was interested in exploring that subject, when the controversy has to do with, I guess, disagreement about social justice strategies or whatever, like, what do you think the implication is when he's like, I would be happy to educate people on race realism?
I think it's literally perfect. It's within his wheelhouse of what he's educated to do. If you like, one of my biggest frustrations as like an online debater content creator is people like me end up getting tasked with debating these like esoteric or very difficult to navigate scientific fields, and nobody from those scientific disciplines will ever enter into any of these discussions and give their opinions. So if somebody that actually has a background in the field wants to like enter into that field and give a discussion on race realism, me personally, I'd rather somebody like, well, I don't know now, but back then, Brett Weinstein talking about race realism and evolutionary psychology, I'd prefer that to like, you know, Nick Fuentes or somebody talking about it.
It's a pretty low bar to clear. I'd hope that it was maybe a little bit higher, but okay, that's
Well,
your standard.
I mean, I'd prefer him to like Ben Shapiro talking about it, I guess, yeah.
Another low standard. All right, so
Well, it's
our standard
conservatives. The
is a little
standard's not very
different.
high, okay? I'm trying my
Okay.
best here.
All right, so
But I mean, like, do you think that, like, no offense to Brett, or take offense, I don't want Brett to do like a workshop on like, let's talk about like the systemic injustice that appears in society and how we can like alleviate some of the pressures that minorities feel in like America. Like, he's an evolutionary biologist. What is he going to say to that? Like, that's just like a virtue signal. Like, oh, let's like, I brought a slideshow from YouTube.
I know, but like, I think that there's something in between this huge virtue signal and then ramping it all the way up to like, I'd be interested in discussing race realism with you and the idea that there may or may not be superior racial genes, even though that's junk science. To me,
Well,
it's no different than if he had brought up, what is it when they like skull shapes?
Phrenology.
Phrenology. If he said, I would be happy to, I'm not happy to participate in this like anti-racism exercise, whether or not it's good is subjective, obviously, and you can have his disagreements with that, but then to follow that up with, but I would be happy to discuss, what did you just say it was?
Phrenology?
Phrenology.
Well, but the phrenology is by definition.
With the black students of this.
Yeah, sure.
okay?
Phrenology is a bunk science, but like, look at where we're at now, okay? I'm glad you picked this topic 'cause it illustrates my point perfectly, right?
Okay, perfect.
We've made a justification for an evolutionary biologist to not talk about evolutionary biology because it's like insensitive.
No. He's free to talk about it, but I'm also free to scrutinize the implication by which, like, why is he demanding it? This is now the time to bring it up.
Well, because people want to have a
response to a
conversation about like
disagreement.
race and stuff, right? So wouldn't this be, if he was ever going to do it, like that would be?
I think it's a little bit unfair to characterize it as like, oh, people just want to have a discussion about race. Like,
That's
we're
true.
just-
They didn't want to have a discussion about race. They wanted to force white people off the campus using social pressure for
Right, and
reasons.
I'm saying I'm not even going to defend that or discuss
Mm-hmm.
it or whatever, but I think like the situation is a little bit more nuanced than, oh, he wasn't allowed to, he got fired or like whatever.
I don't
that
think he actually
was-
got fired. I think he ended up settling with the school and leaving with some payoff package. But it was obviously everybody wanted to leave, the
Yeah,
students and I think the
exactly. Like,
faculty as well.
People
But
think that it starts and ends with like, oh, they, and he talked about this. Like, I listened to his interview on Joe Rogan where he said that, he is a Jewish man and he is uncomfortable being told that within a country that he wants to live in, there are spaces that he is not welcome in because it's happened historically to Jewish people, which is a completely defensible point. What is indefensible to me and what he conveniently leaves out is not only did he voice his disagreement, which is completely fine. We can argue and disagree about like which strategies about anti-racism and social justice are best and appropriate. The umbrage I thought people were taking up with him was that he was saying, oh, but I would be happy to give a lecture on race realism, which is essentially the new version of.
But hold on, what did you
like-
think he was going to say? Was he going to say like, welcome, today we're going to study the warrior gene and why black people are predisposed? Like, did you really think that was going to be like his presentation? Like, we don't even know what the presentation would have been.
What? I know it would have been very interesting to hear all about.
But we never got to
race,
hear it.
Race realism. Is it?
Well, there are things you can talk about for, like, I'm sure as an evolutionary biologist, he'd have something to say.
But do you
Maybe his whole
honestly
presentation.
think that he was sad that he didn't get to give that presentation? Do you think that he was really making that offer to give that lecture because
It sounded
he
like the
wanted
offer
to
would have
educate
been that,
people?
like, if you want to have a day where we discuss issues that are relevant to minorities, here is an issue that I can discuss that's relevant to my particular scientific discipline, which
Yeah,
I think is what would make the
the
most sense
study of
for it.
how they're inferior to white genes.
How do you know that's what he was going to say? Maybe he's going to say black people were superior.
Yeah, maybe he was. Maybe we were deprived of an excellent lecture where he made that exact point. you know?
Regardless, it's a college campus. Isn't this like where those types of conversations should be happening with an actual evolutionary biologist rather than like whatever your local conservative group is or your local YouTuber?
I agree with that entirely. But
Well, then
my
what's
only,
then what do you disagree with?
my disagreement is that doesn't meet the threshold to say that it's gone out of control. What you just went on to describe, in excessive detail because he will not ever stop like telling the story.
Well, I described it because you asked me for one example. That's one example. We go through plenty others if you want.
I
If
know.
that was the only thing, but
I think you and your audience know all too well that anecdotes, like data is not just the plural. Like
Sure.
Yes, you know what I'm saying.
yeah, data's not the plural of anecdote. I understand, but when you
Right.
start to get like story after story after story after story,
Is that story
some
after
of which
story, though?
it is story after story.
Oh.
So, like, one of the most recent really troubling ones, I'll do this last one and then we'll let the other guy jump on, and I'll let you respond to this. One of the most recent troubling ones to me, very troubling, very upsetting, was there was a study that was promoted, I think it was conducted at and then promoted by the University of Washington. And this was a study showing that puberty blockers were incredibly beneficial to minors when they were prescribed, and they checked for suicidality after the fact.
Okay.
And when they did this study, the university was shouting it from the rooftops, this is so great, we're helping trans kids, puberty blockers are amazing. People went back and they dug through the study and they're like, okay, well, when you actually look at it, it's actually a wash. It doesn't really help suicidality much at all. Like
Like a
doesn't-
hormone wash?
Stop. No, it doesn't help much at all. Okay, we're not doing that.
Okay.
But when the university found this out, when they were internal emails got leaked when this was brought up, and they were like, okay, well, actually, it looks like this wasn't true at all, but we're not going to really talk about it publicly because people were so happy with the last headlines. It would be kind of shitty to announce now that it didn't actually do much at all. This was like not verbatim, but this is more or less what the contents of the email were.
Okay.
And it's like, holy shit. Well, now we're actually talking about like scientific literature being published and promoted, and now we're talking about picking and choosing which scientific literature we want to promote based on the social agenda that it promotes. That's really scary to me. And there are more anecdotes, but go for it. I'll let you respond to that one.
Okay, like I'm not even going to disagree that like you can throw these anecdotes at me all day, but they will always just be that. They will just be anecdotes. Like, are we actually seeing a meaningful trend? And I mean beyond the scope of individual people having their livelihoods disrupted, losing their income or whatever. Honestly, for the most part, I would disagree, or like I would agree with you that like in each like discrete example that you're going to bring up, there were inappropriate measures that were taken to HR to get them removed from some campus where somebody should have been able to speak where they weren't able to. But I'm saying, can you see this borne out in any sort of meaningful policy that's been instituted at even at a municipal level or possibly state or federal? And I just don't think it's ever met that threshold. And I think that alone kind of negates your entire premise that it's gone too far, because we would see it happening in Congress, happening in state legislatures, happening Congress is federal, or at the Supreme Court, that because wokeness has gone amok, we must make these corrective policy measures that could potentially, do more harm than good. And I guess that's mostly what I'm worried about, like the policy implications of saying that, like, okay, even if wokeness has gone too far, fine, like for the sake of the argument, I'll concede, like, it has gone too far, like, what do we do about it?
Cut the bother. Okay. Oh, did you ask me what do I do? Oh, I said I give you the last word. Well, I understand that it's not there like in policy positions, but in schools and in the response to what's happening in schools, it does seem to be there. Now, for whatever reason, progressives are really bad at getting people elected and getting their will enacted in Congress. But I think across like college campuses, like when you look at like, man, what was the last place? Like the ideological leanings of like professors and stuff, it's like 85% left. And like even some of the econ departments, I don't know if it's true here for University of Texas.
But is that a problem? Should we be hiring professors based off of their partisan affiliation? Shouldn't it be based off their expertise in the subject, how well they are at lecturing?
Yeah, it should be, but you just told me that somebody with the expertise in evolutionary biology couldn't talk about it because it was racially insensitive.
No, I did say that he was fine to talk about it, but I was saying it's interesting also to explore the implication of why he decided that that was the appropriate moment to give that particular lecture.
I understand, but I'm saying that, like, when I'm not saying we should hire people based on their ideological proclivities.
Sounded like it.
No, it didn't. You just heard that because you wanted to hear that.
Okay.
But if you're getting this huge slant in a certain direction, the question is, like, well, are all
how do you know that partisan slant?
The question is, are all of these people, do they just happen to be left-leaning, or is there like a culture that's kind of developing that encourages only left-leaning people to participate, or people that aren't left-leaning to kind of like hush their opinion a bit?
You say, is there a culture? No. I think you firmly decided that,
well, because there obviously
definitely
is,
is a culture.
There obviously is a culture.
There is this liberal orthodoxy that's being enforced within academia or whatever.
Progressive orthodoxy.
Oh, okay. Aren't you a progressive yourself?
Yes. But I don't enforce the progressive orthodoxy. That's why I'm here at the University of Texas talking to kids.
But are you sure that that's really the progressive orthodoxy?
What for? What?
If you went up to the majority of progressives and you gave all of these examples, do you think they would wholesale start endorsing like any of the repercussions that happen in all of these like awful anecdotes that you're giving?
Yes.
Where somebody's like you're positive
so.
on that. Okay, just like wholesale disagree on
over
that.
51%,
I think you would be able to find plenty of liberal and left-leaning people who would be able to condemn any sort of actions that were taken. Like,
there probably would be some, but I think that over half of like progressives would be in favor of like viciously getting rid of like certain types of thoughts that they feel like don't belong on college campuses at all.
Like what types of thoughts?
Like
And how would you even like eliminate these thoughts? How would these progressives
Well, you do it through
on
social
campus,
culture pressure, right?
And are they not allowed to do that?
I don't think they should on college campuses, no.
Why not?
Enforce because I think that a college campus should represent.
This is what I mean. It's like wokeness just ends up turning
Wait,
into.
I'm
like,
answering specifically. You're not letting me respond to your questions. Hold on.
Wokeness is anything I don't like.
No, that's not true. Okay, what I'm saying is that I think that on college campuses there should be a diversity of thought, right? I should be able to find on a college campus the local fascist squad talking about fascism, and if I don't like what they have to say, I should be able to ask my political science teacher hey,
That's
these people
what those
brought this up.
progressives are doing.
No, they're not. What they're saying is we need to protest, boycott them, and get them kicked off campus so that in our own poli-sci classes we can circle jerk about how ideologically pure and cool we are without ever having to address an uncomfortable thought or deal with trends of thought that are
at what point do
hard
your
to...
criticisms of the your local white pride group, fascist group start, in your opinion, going too far? You can only criticize them up to a certain point before you're hey, you're heading into territory where you're your wokeness greed.
Yeah, I think the issue is when you're
at
not
odds with other people's rights.
Yeah, when you refuse to platform it at all, I think that's an issue because then people don't even know how to engage with those different strains of thought.
I know, but you know who was proposing stuff like this? It was liberals, not progressives. Back in 2019, during the presidential campaigns, Kamala Harris was the one who was going up on the debate stage and saying that she was making it a policy promise that she believed that Trump should be banned off Twitter. This was back in 2019.
Kamala Harris is a progressive, not a liberal, though.
What?
She was like Medicare for all. She was way to the left of Biden. She absolutely was.
She was.
She was.
But is she now?
No, she fell in line because Biden is a boss.
You know who's disagreeing with her?
What?
The other progressive on the stage, Elizabeth Warren.
Good. And now look where she is.
And where's that?
Not where Biden is. Or Kamala Harris. Okay, final word, go.
Final word? I told you I'm not here to make any sort of,
Well, just give us a final thought. I gotta let people on it. Damn.
You give your final thoughts first, okay?
My final thought is it's hard to quantify, because people ask,
Maybe
well,
because
how
it
do you...
doesn't exist.
No. It's hard to quantify, because people say, show me, a poll or show me a thing of, why...
Yes, people ask for evidence. They ask me for these inconvenient things like citations for the assertions that I'm making where, you have to actually prove the empirical claims that you're making.
You're doing it right now. You're not giving me a chance to speak.
I'm not. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Go for it.
I think that you can see a huge trend both in the ideas and stuff that get passed around and enforced socially in college campuses among faculty and staff, where you're getting more and more people that are complaining about, hey, I didn't fit the progressive orthodoxy here, so I quit. There was an anthropology department where people are complaining about this. I wish I could remember the school. I should remember. There was that University of Washington thing. There was stuff that happened, the Oberlin stuff, where they were racist against the bakery for arresting a black person. You have the Brett Weinstein stuff. There's story after story after story, and I acknowledge they are just stories, but at some point when not only are these stories becoming more frequent, when it gets support en masse by progressives, because you do see them generally across social media where we can quantify it, supporting these stories en masse, I don't know what piece of evidence you would need to see oh, okay, maybe this is a problem that we should start to worry about.
No, I do think that those individual instances are problems that have to be dealt with, but we already have the tools to deal with them. We have you can appeal. You can appeal to your department chair if you're within academia. You can go to HR. You can file wrongful termination lawsuits. We have the courts. There are avenues for dealing with these things, and all of them are available to these people. I would honestly say that Weinstein's life has only been made better by that because he's now a millionaire. He just grifts off this entire thing. He'll never stop. It was excellent for him. On principle, I would disagree with him, but it was only to his benefit. You think he's has he truly been silenced? I heard more about this man after that happened than before it. Before he was a nobody.
Yeah, for certain people they could benefit from it, but for the overwhelming amount of people it's a negative thing. There are certain huge people that can benefit from being canceled because they've got the platform, they get all the media
No, but he was
attention.
that person because he was a nobody before that, right? Or was he any sort
yeah,
of
but he
significant
managed to spin
professor?
it off into a media career. But most people that get canceled don't benefit from it. You agree with that, right?
Yeah, but how many? That's the problem. Is that
99% of people that get hardcore canceled don't benefit from it. There are a few that manage to spin it off into something successful, but
when you say most people who get canceled, though, are you making the assumption that most people are working class people, and this is happening within
people on social
workplaces?
media that are getting canceled, people in college teachers that are tenure that are getting canceled,
Do you think social media is indicative of the views of your average American? Don't you think it's
I think it's
highly
becoming
skewed?
more and more in line with the views of the average American. Yes.
Okay, all empirical research like runs contrary to the assertion that you just made. Like even if you
Okay,
look
hold
at
on.
most-
No, that is not true. One second. The empirical research says that Twitter tends to be more white, more affluent, and more young than the American demographic. But research will not tell you that opinions on Twitter don't represent the opinions of any Americans at all. There is a divergence, of course, but the opinions of online
never said that
people.
they don't
hold on. The
represent
opinions of
any
online
sort
people
of
15 years
opinions of
ago on the
Americans.
internet were crazy not resembling real life people. Nobody went to the internet in 2002 to find out like what do Americans think about XYZ. But nowadays with social media, whose explicit goal is to connect as many people as possible across like political paradigms, of course you're going to see like Twitter today in 2022 is going to represent more American opinion than a GeoCities website in 1998.
Why is that?
Because more and more people are connected to the internet today.
I think only 35% of Americans are on Twitter, and then of that 35, I think it's something that like 25% of users, or like a vast minority of users actually account for the vast, like 97% of tweets.
Probably,
so
yeah.
we're truly like
I'm one of
definitely
those.
talking about, yeah, we know that, like a vocal minority here.
Sure, it is still a vocal minority, but it's becoming more and more of a majority, right? Like
Is that
15
right?
years ago, my mom would have never said that she gets like news on Facebook. Today, she gets her news exclusively on Facebook, and I think it's something like 65 or 70% of Americans say they get the majority of their news from social media.
Aren't
so they
you
might not be.
telling on yourself a little bit by saying like my mom, or like citing like a personal example, kind of like
Okay, well
showing
I like to do the 1, 2. So the first was my mom. Okay, the second. So the second would be, I'm pretty sure that like the most recent poll that I've heard is like it's between 65 and 70% of Americans' primary news source is social media. Like, it's such a huge deal. You've got Facebook talking about like Cambridge Analytica and stuff in front of Congress. You've got Congress constantly asking questions of like, how do we deal with misinformation online? You've got some
Yeah, I know,
people
Joe
that would
Biden
assert that maybe you're like on one breath you're telling me like, well, social media, does it really represent much? And then on the other
I
hand,
was
you've
not
got
telling you,
people
I was
saying
asking you.
on the other hand, you've got people saying that like Russian interference in different social media platforms was so important it might have been the tipping point for the election in 2016. So I mean, it seems like it probably matters.
Oh, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter, but I'm saying like to what degree is it indicative and like reflective of your average American voter? Because like you're saying, your average American, like most people who vote, right, are they wealthy, or like what economic
Your voting
demographic
population
are there?
probably skews older, wealthier, whiter. Would be my guess.
Right. Okay. Who makes up like? Whoa. We good?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, like rich people, almost by definition, we're talking about like a minority of
Yep.
of people, right? So like the vast majority of this country is like working class, right?
Okay.
And you're already saying like you already can see that like Twitter skews affluent, skews white, skews rich, skews educated.
Yep.
Okay, like that's
Like the
not
voting population.
That's not the, I know, but that's who's voting. I'm talking about all Americans, not just voting Americans.
Okay, well, what I mean,
if you're
all
saying that
Americans,
this
like
is some
Americans
sort
that are
of
9 years
national-
old, or what?
Huh?
Like 9-year-old Americans, or what?
What, I don't know, it's your topic, but like I would say like for the sake of this, like Americans over the age of like 16, maybe 18,
I think social media is giving us more indicative views of like what they think as time goes on. I would say.
you're
but
just wrong. Okay.
I'm not wrong.
So
Okay, here, final thing, and then because I got.
wait,
go,
so
yeah,
my
go.
final thing is that you say you're like a pretty big like free market guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can find some common ground here. All right. I don't think you have any sort of meaningful policy prescription that you could put forward to deal with, the supposed overabundance of wokeness that's occurring on college campuses and, in your house, just your workplace, like anywhere. But like, okay, like this is the common ground is like maybe to introduce like antitrust, because what you're complaining about is like capitalism to me. You're complaining about just actors within a free market who are navigating that to their benefit and for profit. So, like, for example, Joe Biden, I think within the last year, made the statement and then walked it back that quote, practically, Facebook is killing people because of COVID misinformation, because of vaccine disinformation that was being disseminated among social media. And he backed off that pretty quickly, even though the first take was the base take. Facebook absolutely is killing people because they were promoting misinformation. They were promoting conspiracy theorists, people like Alex Jones, and what the question is like, okay, if that's happened, what are we going to do about it? Okay. And Joe Biden backed off that statement because he has no solution to it, because his entire neoliberal ideology is predicated upon making sure that these actors within the free market who have a coercive power that he doesn't like be allowed to do as they please, and at this point they control probably several percentage points of web traffic, and what are we going to do about that? He backed off of it because he's not about to say, oh, well, we're going to break up Facebook into a million pieces until it's no longer profitable for these individual bad actors to spread disinformation, because he's not going to regulate them like that.
Yeah, I agree. And my goal isn't generally to function like from the government. I think like socially we should pressure people to not be as big on like the cancel stuff. That's kind of what I push on.
But what's the point of having this like or like I guess this principle if you're not going to actually try to institute it into policy? And
Because it doesn't have to be, we can have social pressure that isn't like dating norms aren't
so
like.
you're just talking about just culture war.
Yep.
You're not interested.
I'm a YouTuber. That's what I talk about.
Yeah, we know. But then what's the point? All you're doing is complaining that people don't agree with you.
Yeah, getting people to change their mind. That's why I do events like this.
Ah, yes. Was your mind changed?
Nope, but I hope yours was.
Okay.
What's your name?
You call me X.
X.
No slave names here.
No slave names here. Okay, gotcha.
So,
Yeah, what do you want to start? You want me to start or you want to start?
I mean, I guess I'm confused as to why you're taking the terminally online definition of wokeness so much. It's like the way you're presenting wokeness, I feel comes from like all these dudes who get their political information from fucking memes. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's what wokeness is.
Sure.
That being said, now I think there's nothing wrong, inherently wrong with canceling people for saying stupid ass shit. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Like, if someone says, if Yeezy's out there saying, I hate Jewish people, and we're canceling him, is that being too woke?
The yay stuff is is very complicated. That's a very.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, in
Well,
my mind, that's where it goes, is all these people want to say hateful stuff.
Sure.
Right? They
And
want to
so
say,
let's-
like, I don't like black people. I don't like women. And then they kind of, you like to use the term dog whistling, right? But they say it a little more subtly. And then they get canceled and they cry. Oh, no, I'm not, my free speech is being suppressed. It's like, no, you're just being an asshole.
So so taking apart some of the things you said earlier. So the first thing you said, you mentioned like the terminally online thing for people that get political information from memes. Do you know anything about my background or what I do or anything?
A little bit. Like, I watch you occasionally.
Okay,
more
that's fine. I'm just curious,
recently,
just so I know.
yeah.
So, like 5 or 6 years ago, I used to debate against a lot of conservatives, alt-righters, centrist people that were really like right people masquerading as centrists, right?
For sure.
And oftentimes the argument that I would use is like, you are attacking and, you know, vilifying and going crazy about these opinions online that like nobody really believes in. You know, you've got like YouTube videos with like 20 million views attacking a tweet with like 4 likes. There's like no reason to do this. It seems really silly. But it seems like a couple things have happened. Over time, the online stuff has gotten a lot more popular, and also the online stuff is like permeating into real life more. So for instance, you made that reference earlier to like, it feels like you're arguing against people that get all their news from memes. And I would agree that I am, but it feels like, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 33. When I grew up, my parents constantly told me, don't get information from the internet, don't trust anything you read on the internet. In school, we weren't allowed to use the internet as a resource, and they told us that constantly. And now my parents get their news exclusively from Facebook memes, such that they don't even watch Fox News anymore. And I want to say the recent polling in that was like 64% of Americans get their news from Facebook. So insofar as we're addressing people that get their news from memes, is it sad? Yeah, but I think it's actually become the majority of Americans that get their news from memes or comedy-like material, you know? And I think there's even a precedent for that. Like, how many young Americans, I guess, of my age, I'm still young, how many people like my age would have said, that, like, oh, yeah, I got my news back in the day from The Daily Show, right? Which is like a comedy show.
Yeah,
not
for
really
sure,
like
for sure.
Online news, yeah. So I feel like there a lot more of that is kind of happening, where people are online, they're getting their information from online, they're getting their news from online, and then they're amplifying stuff online. That's the first part. So that's why I'm kind of addressing a lot of the stuff that goes on in that realm, because I see a lot of it bleeding over in the real world. The second part is when you talk about like who should be canceled for saying, you know, certain things. If you want to go online, you want to say things like I hate black people and stuff. I think that's totally fair to like for people to blow back against you, like you should. The issue that I have is it starts to get a lot more subtle. Like you brought up the dog whistling thing. I don't know if we talk about dog whistling as much, but I remember there was a period in time where it was like an online scavenger hunt to try to find anybody that made the OK symbol. And if you found them ever doing it anywhere, it meant they were like a closet secret Nazi, and people were trying to find out like any piece of information about them to like shut them down from their jobs, get them kicked out of whatever. And a lot of people were just doing it because of like either dumb meme shit or they just like naturally did it. There was I think a staffer in Congress that people were trying to say was like giving secret Nazi salutes like on camera, when she was probably just like making a symbol or whatever. So yeah, those are kind of like two areas. So one is that the online stuff has gotten a lot more
No,
into
I
the
agree.
real life,
I
and
agree.
two is that the canceling, like people can try to cancel like Kanye West over saying some crazy shit, which I agree with. But like for normal citizens, if somebody's starting to say some weird stuff, I think we should be able to engage them in conversation to try to pull them back from the brink rather than cutting them off as soon as they're kind of like leaving the mainstream, I guess like progressive opinion.
I guess where I'm confused is like, what do you mean by canceling someone and take like, if anyone out here wants to say some crazy racist stuff, I'm not gonna be like, hey, you're not allowed to be around me. I'm gonna fucking kill you. If they're open to engaging in a conversation, the issue is a lot of these people who say this stuff, they're not interested in conversations. They're not interested in engaging. A lot of it is them trying to sway people to their opinion as subtly as possible that I don't like minorities. I don't like women. I don't like, the LGBTQ plus community. And I don't see a problem with telling those people, yo, shut the fuck up. Like, because you don't have any interest in actually engaging in a debate. What you're interested in is getting those, like, moderate people that claim they're moderate, who have their minds easily manipulated by contrarian opinions, things like that. And they just want to bring those people further and further to their side. And I don't see a problem with telling those people, yo, get the fuck out of my space. Like, there's no reason to let you say this vitriolic bullshit, because you don't actually, some of them don't even believe that shit. Like, they're just saying it because they want more power or means or access. Like, they see it as these, I'm kind of wavering a bit, but they see it as like a cultural lightning rod,
Sure.
right? That is just going to
Yeah, and I agree with you. There
embolden
are
their base.
some of the people that are having the conversations are so ridiculous, and they seem like impervious to like fact or argument. I do agree with that to some extent, that these people do exist. The people that are willing to do the debates and the people that are kind of at the top of these are definitely like that. But I think a lot of their followers like genuinely do believe this stuff. Like, they're not just grifting, they're not just saying whatever. They genuinely do get like taken in by it, and they start to believe it. And then moderates or people in the center will start to get taken in by it. And the thing that is scary to me is, as somebody that I try to engage anybody that I can with differing political opinions, is when somebody, a moderate, goes into a space and they see that on one side somebody's saying like, you, we don't talk about these opinions, we don't do that, they're hateful, and the other side is saying, well, we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. I think that the moderate looks at the person over there and they're like, well, this guy seems way more f***ing reasonable. These people are denying the ability to even have the conversation. These people are willing to talk about anything, and it creates this kind of like weird pipeline to where people are being funneled over into these like kind of conservative spaces, because the conservatives seem more willing to have the conversations than the progressives are.
See,
I think that largely explains the success of people like Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate, because you've got people that are willing to address like a group of like young white men that the left-leaning media has kind of like demonized over and over again and has made it socially acceptable to attack.
so are you saying it's not socially acceptable to attack people who say things like, I hate women, or I hate...
Well, the thing is,
like,
I don't think people usually say like, I hate women. They'll say things like, I think women are different than men and shouldn't have the same jobs. They'll say stuff like that.
I agree with that, but they say those things with the purpose of kind of subliminally painting those messages of, hey, yeah, men and women are different because men are better than women, or
But some people
blacks and
might-
whites are different because white people are better than black people.
But do you think there could be some people that say that, where it doesn't come from a place of hatred, it just comes from a place of observation? Like, somebody might say, well, men and women
Nah,
are
I think it
different.
comes from a place of ignorance, not hatred or observation. I think it comes from ignorance.
How
And
would you argue, 'cause, like, men and women are different, right? Or do you? do you
yeah,
think so?
for
Yeah.
sure, for
so, like,
sure,
somebody
for sure.
could make that observation, and then they might see a conservative that says men and women are different, therefore men are better than women. But they'll see a progressive say, well, men and women aren't different at all. Well, aren't
What-
they more likely to listen to the
how
conservative
many
just 'cause he's
how many
starting opposite,
progressives
you know?
do you see saying men and women aren't different at all? Like,
Well, I mean, I think arguably over like, it gets a little bit more into the weeds, but like on the trans stuff, for instance, there's a lot of arguments that like, well, if you're on HRT for 1 year, you're essentially the same as whatever gender you've, started to take HRT or TRT.
I mean,
to
but if we're talking about the trans population, that's like less than 1% of the population, right?
Yeah, but for a while it dominated like 85% of the media cycle, right?
And why do you think that is?
I think there's two reasons. I think one is because conservatives are looking for lightning rod issues that they can do a culture
Exactly.
over. But two, it's because progressives get baited into defending really stupid positions and won't just like give ground in areas where
Oh
they probably
yeah,
should.
I think there is a lot of anger within the progressive movement, and I think the issue is it's justifiable anger. Like, for decades, we've had so many conservative voices saying these hateful things, And the second that progressives start pushing back, it's like, oh my God, you're unreasonable. How dare you say these things? Look, you're trying to cancel me. And it's like, no, we're not trying to cancel you. We're just pissed. Like, how are we supposed to just sit there and take it when people are saying, hey, every single brown person is illegal. Hey, every single black person's a criminal. Hey, every single trans person is a groomer. Like, nah.
It might be like, this might be like an idealist position I have, but like I guess the hope would be that we could be better than the opposition. That like if you have people that are incredibly hateful in the rhetoric, the counter to that isn't to be like incredibly hateful back, but the idea is that like, okay, well, we're going to engage with the ideas and we're going to do our thing instead of like pushing like so hardcore on the other side that you have things like people justifying like the BLM riots, where let's say stuff like, well, you know, people are rioting and it's understandable because of all the anger that they suffer. And it's like, okay, well, now you've got all these communities that now are even more incensed against BLM. Like we saw support for BLM massively drop off once the rioting started, and it's like, well, fuck, well, what do we actually accomplish at the end of the day? Like they were angry, they did dumb shit, the conservatives, which they have, I agree with you, but now we got angry and then we did dumb shit, and now like everybody's back at ground zero. And I'll give you the last word on that for the response. Go for it.
So, are you saying? I know you said I get the last word.
Respond to a simple question if you want, but yeah, go.
I do think there is a time and a place to respond with anger towards hate. I do think there is a time and a place to look at people who say terrible stuff and to tell them, hey, shut up. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I'm gonna pull the Hitler card, right? Like if someone A1 from day one, Hitler's out there saying I hate Jews, and someone shoots Hitler the second he says that shit, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like if like I don't see how that is a terrible thing. If someone's out there and saying trans people should be genocided, and you shoot that person and you take that person off the face of the earth, I don't think that's inherently a bad thing.
Okay, well, I obviously I completely disagree, but thanks for the chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming up and disagreeing. I appreciate it.
I'm Atanu.
Wait, what'd you?
Atanu.
Atanyo.
Atanu.
Atadu.
Yes.
Okay. How's it going?
Great. I just wanted to clarify, but you think that there is progressive movements that are worth like pursuing?
Yeah,
right?
I think the progressive policies are things that I generally agree with. Yeah, I would say I'm a progressive. Yeah.
So wouldn't you say that like the overall like woke movement has progressed that significantly, at least in like last 10 years or so?
A bit, yeah, but I'm worried about like a snap back because of the unwillingness to engage with the other side. So like I would say like what we saw with Leah Thomas and the national discourse on that represented a snap back.
I mean, like, I think when you think about progressive movements historically and recently, that's always been a kind of part of it. That's always been like the conservative like talking point that like, hey, are we going too far? Are we doing too much? And then I feel like liberals and progressives have always been carrying too much water on that topic for conservatives. I feel like we should talk more about the issues and not like say like, hey guys, we need to chill out. Because like if you think about like, for example, like BLM more recently, there's a lot of conservatives going on and talking about how there's too much rioting, there's too much blah blah blah. And then like I think like the number was like 93% of all the protests were peaceful. It's like why as progressives, why do we have to like address the worst parts of our movement when we can just push our message?
So this is something that I would agree with.
Yeah.
But here's the issue that happened. This is what changed. So that's what you just gave was the correct response. A conservative comes up and they say, well, what about BLM? That was super violent. You go, no, it wasn't violent. There were aspects of violence to it, but I disavow that. I don't agree with that. Most of it was peaceful. We should push for the peaceful stuff and disavow the violent stuff. The issue is when the majority of progressives started to defend the violence. And I think that's when stuff started to get like really wacky, because you started, rather than saying like, yeah, there was some rioting, we don't support that, that's not good, you started getting people saying things like, well, you know, they were rioting against the capitalist establishment that's part of the oppressive system that is keeping minorities down, and that's why we have to burn down like neighborhoods and city blocks. And it's like, well, now we're in a totally different world where it's not just like you're defining, you know, the types of stuff that we have to talk about. We're defining it by defending it.
I mean, I think that's always going to happen though. I think it's worth moving on to different topics or defending the thing that we're trying to defend without like giving that too much like attention, like because I don't think like it's a vocal minority of progressives that like push this message. I think you said earlier today that like a tweet with like 4 retweets or likes will get like 20 million views on like a YouTube video. It's like,
yeah.
why?
Well, it used to, but now I feel like it's different. Like, it used to be the case that Twitter was a place where we just kind of ignored people because they were crazy and we knew they were crazy. But like in the 2016 election cycle, Bernie Sanders had to like disavow the people on Twitter that were like militant in favor of him. Like he had to actually come out on stage and be like, I don't support any of this stuff. And then you're starting to see more and more vocal support for what I would argue are like movements that go too far, or at least protests that go too far. Like we should unequivocally disavow rioting. It's the easiest thing in the world to do,
I
with
agree,
some limited exception. You know, if you want to riot against like certain public buildings, like sure. But when we're talking about like burning down car dealerships and stuff, that's like the easiest disavowal in the world.
Yeah.
And when it's reached the point to where you've got like pictures of CNN journalists, you know, saying like, oh, here we are at the mostly peaceful protest, and it's like a car dealership on fire in the background. It's like the freest ammunition in the world to give to like this conservative side of people that are like trying to claim everybody's violent and stuff.
Yeah,
You know?
I do think that like liberals and progressives have been historically bad at pushing their narratives and their whatever they want to push, but like I do think that like we like the average person doesn't have, like, I guess like more specifically to the topic, anti-wokeism. I don't think we have the media literacy to understand, for example, if you were Crowder coming onto UT campus and I was like a dumb UT student, like most people will get like farmed in that instance. They would like look bad.
Yeah.
Versus so like canceling these people or preventing them from showing up and pushing their message when most people don't have the ability to like push back, I think that does more good than it does harm.
So here's the issue that I have. I think that if Crowder shows up at a college campus and makes college kids look bad, college campuses are the perfect place for that to happen. Because if somebody presents you with an idea that you don't know how to deal with on a college campus, you have communities, you've got teachers, you've got resources to figure out, well, how do I navigate these conversations? Some guy came up and he gave somehow a really compelling argument for like Nazism or something. I didn't really know what to say. I didn't have the historical background. I didn't have like the policy governmental background. I didn't have like even the moral or ethical background. I know what to do. But I've got this whole host of resources on this college campus that I can like have conversations with to flesh out like, well, this is what you could have said or this is how you deal with that. As opposed to what seems to happen is people go to college, they hear one message the whole time, they don't really get any diversity of thought, then they graduate, then they're in the workplace, and then they stumble onto like these crazy YouTube channels, and now they're like, well, hold on, this guy is saying some crazy true shit, and I've never heard a counter to any of these ideas before. Maybe there's some truth to this. And now who do you have to talk to like try to figure out if they're good or bad ideas? Your friends? You've got like the comment section on videos. Like at that point you're like doomed, you know? That's why I feel like college is like this last bastion of area where you can have like really aggressive conversations, but then have a community afterwards to go into and then to figure out like, well, what's the best way to navigate it?
I do appreciate the idea of that like you get challenged in like the marketplace of ideas and then you go and like learn from it. But like there's two things. It's like, first of all, that's assuming that kid would go from that conversation and then want to learn from it instead of just being like butthurt and doing nothing about it. That's one big part. And the second thing is, for every kid that like learns from this instance from like facing it, there's like a million people watching Crowder's videos and learning the opposite. It's like, oh, look at this like kid, he got like owned on YouTube, right? It's like those videos in like 2016, 2015 created a whole
I think I statted her wrong. She's not fast.
conservative people. Like,
Yeah, but I feel like the reason why they created that generation is because like Crowder largely seems
Hi, everybody. Sorry.
at these college campuses. Like people don't know the
Sniper Snakes, how's it going? It's been a while. Sorry about that.
I don't think that's gonna change though.
You don't think people can be educated to like have good responses to like the
I think that the design of those kind of conversations, when like people come onto campuses and give talks, they aren't going to face any kind of, no matter like what happens, aren't going to face any kind of like real pushback.
So
And
then
instead they can
what
just,
about kids that have graduated college? Like how do they deal with like YouTube videos and stuff? Are they just lost at sea or?
I mean, like I mean I'm pretty black pilled on this. I think most people are not going to have the media literacy to understand.
So then do we like ban it all off YouTube as well, or?
No, it's just, I'm not saying ban it off of YouTube. I'm saying that like when people take these measures to prevent these kind of conversations, I'm not opposed, because I know the result of those conversations is more harm than good.
Isn't like the kind of the goal of democracy that we ought to be able to have challenging conversations? Like, isn't that part of the responsibility we have as citizens to our government, to our people, to be able to have challenging conversations with opposing points of view?
I do think that there are places for that. Like, for example, like policy debates, when people go on like radio shows, or like they bring on I know like NPR does like a radio show where they bring on two experts on a conversation and they ask like an audience like how do you feel about this before and after, right? I feel like that's more of a controlled environment where you have people who have the ability to combat each other. Or like political debates, like when presidential debates, like governor debates, these kind of areas where you have people who have the training to combat each other and post their ideas, versus like when you come onto a campus and like these people have like weeks of training on how to own like 18-year-olds. It's like,
Yeah, but it's not even usually weeks of training. I guess like the American college student is like one of the most educated like people like in all of history. Like we do so much schooling here. We've got in America especially, you're forced to take like you've got your gen eds, like you've got to take like a whole like, and the whole point is to like round you out more as a college student. I don't even think in Europe, I don't think they force like gen eds as much as they do in the United States. I feel like you should be able to have.
I mean,
like,
I agree.
It's scary to me they did like, well, there's a Nazi on campus and nobody knows how to talk to him. Like, it should be pretty easy to tell a Nazi, like, well, this is why Nazism is a really dumb idea. This is why liberalism or something is better.
Like, there isn't like Nazis on campus straight up saying Nazi stuff. There's like people like Crowder saying like, oh, I think there's like differences between like the races, and then like nobody knows how to handle that.
Yeah, but
and
shouldn't they?
I wish they did.
Then we should do that,
but I
right?
feel like that's very idealized.
But yeah, but
versus-
that's what we're at college. It's a place for ideals, right? Don't
But
you all
like-
have
but like-
dreams? And
but
you
like-
guys aren't old enough to have your hopes and dreams crushed yet. You should still be idealistic, right?
But then we can look at the results. We can see generations of like kids just like being red pilled to like.
Yeah, but like I feel like it's because progressives don't try. This is something that like, and I used to, like 4 years ago, I was 100% on your point of view. Like some things you just can't debate certain people because they're bad faith, they dance around too much, they're slippery, blah blah blah. But then as I look more and more around different types of people, and I've communicated with so many different types of people, what I've realized is that I think you can communicate a lot of ideas to a lot of people, but a lot of people on the left just don't even want to try. They give up before they've even started. Like
Yeah,
some guy
and
will show up and be like,
think
oh,
that's-
black people are warriors and white people are more smart, and the guy will like give up immediately. It's like, oh, okay, well, you got me. And it's like, that's it, really? You're not even going to try to have that conversation?
But
It's like,
I
geez.
think that the fact that you saying that like people aren't willing to try isn't going to change. I feel like that's just a constant. People are
I
going
feel
to
like
be
that's a
set in their
social.
way.
I feel like it's a social experience. I feel like we can change it. I think that can change. Like I think if
'Cause,
somebody
like-
listens to me, they're more likely to do it. And if more people like kind of spread that idea that like if Crowder's here, there should be like a well-informed base of college students where when he says some crazy shit, you can push back on
we
it.
can kind of like look at like something more recent. Like we've seen people like Fuentes or like Trump get banned off of like social media, right?
Yeah.
And now you don't see as much people talking about like the crazy shit that Trump and Fuentes say, right? It's like at the same time, it's like I used to be the opposite. I used to feel like, oh yeah, we should have every idea, bad or good, on the marketplace, and then people should debate it. And bad ideas will fall to the bottom, good ideas will come to the top. But instead, we had like 4 years of like half the population of America
And that's
parodying what Trump said on Twitter.
Yeah,
right?
but I think that's the issue is you can cancel people,
yeah.
but ideas are bulletproof. You ever seen V for Vendetta? No, but like I think you can cancel a person, but you can't like get rid of the ideas. And I think that's the issue. Is that that my big wake up moment for that was Trump being elected. When Trump was running for office, it was so obvious that he had no chance of ever being elected. He just couldn't. His rhetoric was too extreme. Some of the stuff he said was crazy. Even for Republicans, some of the stuff he said was too crazy. Him winning the election was like, holy shit! There are so many people in this country that believe things that I wasn't even aware of. I thought we were past all of
because
that.
If you want to talk about Trump, it's like he spouted. He was obviously given like the biggest platform in the world, being the United States president, right? But,
Sure, but-
let's say like somehow he's prevented of that. There was like a market uptick of violence against minorities, and this. You had the Charleston incident, right? Like that happened more or less because Trump was given like a platform to talk about his stuff, right? It's like specific people do matter.
Yeah, but again, now what are you
Specific
saying?
people
Like,
are
should we-
very.
But the goal, so on one end, we can either confront these ideas head on and try to get people like on our side, or on the other hand, we can just kind of try to get deplatform, ban Trump, ban the next guy, ban Andrew Tate, ban every new ban Sneeko, ban like every new person that comes up. Like obviously the current of idea is still there. Banning the people isn't getting rid of it because some of these people are exploding.
But you can
and
see that there was a huge difference of Trump getting a platform. Like
there
before-
was, but like
before,
although Republicans aren't gone, they still
they
have
aren't
those
gone, but
thoughts.
They were
like
why-
Biden is still at risk in this election. It's
No,
not like,
I
oh, thank
agree,
God
I
we
agree, I
banned
agree.
Trump, right?
I agree.
And like
They're all-
DeSantis is incredibly popular, so
My point is that there's always going to be people who believe X or Y, right? But like people are more afraid to disclose that they're into Y if X is on top, right?
sure. But isn't that like part of the issue? Because I don't want somebody that's
if me and you agree that like Y is bad, then and if our end goal is that we shouldn't have Y, which is Charleston riots, right? Like we shouldn't have like that kind of stuff happen, then we shouldn't allow for those kind of people to talk.
okay.
Because like okay, so
I'll give you I'll respond. I'll give you the final word on it. I want to be allowed to talk, and I think that progressives with radical ideas should be allowed to talk, even if a lot of people find them offensive. I think there's a valuable conversation to be had there. But I think if we're going to let one side talk, we're going to let the other side it has to talk too. I think that if we're going to live in a democracy and if we believe in like democratic ideals, I think we kind of have to trust. There's like one of the risks of democracy is you're putting a lot of trust in normal people. Like a normal U.S. citizen is going to the ballot box and they're deciding if we're going to have drones in Yemen. They're deciding how we're going to regulate social media. They're like when we vote for elected officials, all of this stuff is at risk when we're casting a ballot. And insofar as we're going to trust an American citizen to make that decision, I think we ought to be engaging them in conversations and treating them like people that are intelligent enough to come to like informed decisions about these things. Otherwise, I mean, like all is lost. We're basically ceding all these platforms to whoever wants to be the most ideologically driven warrior who's going to like lead everybody because nobody else is having the conversations. That's my fear. And then I'll give you the last word on it. Go for it.
I wanted to start this by saying that I do agree that a lot of people catch strays when it comes to this movement. A lot of people who shouldn't be canceled get canceled. Even your Twitch ban, I disagree with.
Thank you.
But I do think the overall progress that this woke movement has made has been drastic. Like even like 15 years ago, like gay marriage was not legal in America, right? Like versus the discourse right now, it's like unbelievable for someone on a public platform to talk against gay people, right? So like you see these kind of like huge steps that we've taken in a very quick fashion, probably due to the internet and this ability to project these kind of ideas, but that kind of I don't think we should like hold so much water for the conservative idea that like wokeness has gone too far when we see these large swaths of progress that we've made in a very short amount of time. Like personally what I believe to be progress.
Okay, I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
David.
I think like the problem is that I think like this premise kind of sucks because I think normally when you're putting up like a debate topic, usually it's like a principled position you can argue for or against. Like if that like structure were imposed on this debate, it would be like, is wokeness good or is wokeness bad? Whenever you go like on this question of has wokeness gone too far, it's like it seems like it's implicit that wokeness can be a good thing, but like this is too much of a good thing. It's like a question of like a threshold, right? Where at a certain point, wokeness is good, but when it goes too far, that's like the threshold that has been crossed, and then it's a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's essentially my argument. Like, in terms of policy positions, like I agree with most woke things. I think my issue is just like the rigid social enforcement of like progressive ideas, and then the like expulsion of everybody out of communities that doesn't like adhere to this really rigidly defined system is essentially my problem. But like, I'm not going to say that like wokeness is bad or all woke things are bad or whatever. It's just kind of like the woke culture and like the very purely driven, like internally reinforced culture that's developed out of it, I think has gone a little bit too far. It's too much. So but like when I say too far, like if you've got a guy that is like in a group of friends who like calls people the N-word all day and you're like, we're not talking to you anymore because that's cringe now, that's cool, that's based. But if you got a guy who's like, I don't know if I feel like cultural appropriation is a big deal, and you're like, okay, well, we're going to put you on Twitter and ruin your life, that's probably too far. But both are like a form of like wokeness, I guess, but
like would you say that like you have your principal objection to like the current way that this is handled is like ethical or like in terms of like effectiveness? Because I don't really have like the data to support this, but I think when you look at like certain people who I feel like are causing like active harm, like I think Andrew Tate's a great example, especially because it feels like, and I don't have like the data to support this. It feels like when he got deplatformed from all of these different places, you saw his rhetoric like way less. So if you feel like his rhetoric is causing harm, if he's deplatformed, then you could say that that's like effectively a good thing. But would you still say that that's ethically a bad thing?
I would say it's ethically and practically a bad thing. So the Republicans do this on their side. Progressives do this on their side. Okay, so here's an issue that I have, okay? Let's say we've got some people commit too much crime. Say poor people commit too much crime, okay? There's two ways to look at this. I would argue the conservative way is like make it more illegal. Make it more punishments, fuck these people committing crime. Then the progressive side will look at it and they go, okay, well, hold on. This is a really one-dimensional view of crime. People don't just commit crime because they want to commit crime. There's all of these extenuating factors, all of these environmental reasons why if you put a person in a certain area, they're more conditioned to commit certain types of crime, right? Which is probably a better way of looking at things. But then when progressives look at social media, they'll see like somebody like Andrew Tate, and they'll go like, oh my God, Andrew Tate, popular guy, misogynistic, permaban on everything. Boom, we fixed it. And it's like, well, no, hold on. The problem isn't Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, did this guy even exist online like a year and a half ago?
It feels like his whole thing was like this big, crazy. But I think this is the problem, right? Is like
he came out of like nowhere and he like exploded. But
Well,
like
exactly,
the issue,
that's the problem.
it's not like everybody was like super chill and cool, and then fuck, Andrew Tate just came out of nowhere and boom, turned everybody like red pill, misogynist, blah blah blah. It seemed like that like undercurrent of thought was there, waiting for somebody.
Sorry
to
about that.
Oh,
Sorry.
guy now.
Sorry guys, sorry. Sorry.
Addressed any ideas or addressed any issues that like caused him to become as popular as he was. You just ban that particular person, and you're hoping that another person will become just like him in the future.
Yeah, but like I feel like that's kind of the problem, right? The fact that he could explode so fast, because like what was responsible for that? Was,
Did I
like,
speed swap him already?
Zeroed in on this really effective.
I don't know if I
system
sped
of
swap
being
him.
Popular and disseminating his ideas, because he would have like this weird like pyramid scheme of content creation where he could pay people to put him on TikTok, put him on YouTube, and just.
I guess we'll find out.
And so I feel like the fact that somebody can do that, it's less about the ideas at that point, and it's more about the mechanisms of these social media websites that can allow for people to take control of them and just like explode their ideas.
Sure, but there's a lot of people that could do the same thing Andrew Tate did and not get any popularity at all. Like at the end of the day, he had a good scheme.
Why do I keep going mute? Because I'm having
only got popular because there
a
was
conversation
to hear that message that, he
that
was
apparently
saying.
can't wait.
And I think that like it's not like Andrew Tate came out of nowhere. Like him personally, he came out of nowhere. But like
I shouldn't mute again. I shan't
you know,
mute again.
the early
I will tell the other
20s,
person to go
take
fuck
part in the
themselves.
community. You've had the growing like red pill, black pill community. Now you've got like this like the whatever the new generation or iteration of red pill community under like Tate. This like quasi-Christian, quasi.
Yeah, no. For some reason, I thought, even though everyone's like, yeah, Artie, you should stream. Like you shouldn't give up streaming. You should try harder. I feel like there's a future in it. Even though they say that, they always wait for stream to drop all their fucking bullshit on me every single time. And it's just this weird dynamic that I'm a part of.
Here's the thing, if I was a conservative, okay, I would ask a progressive, okay, you want to ban Andrew Tate, you want to get rid of like Jordan Peterson, you want to get rid of these guys. Who are your male role models on the progressive side that are speaking to like disaffected young men?
Yeah, I mean that is a good question, but like I think the thing that I want to get back to is like obviously nobody's going to disagree that misogyny has always existed and that like these.
I'm going to get to Master Rank tonight if it kills it. Oh god. Oh god. The problem is I have to sacrifice a lot of Not sacrifice. I just need to reprioritize my time. And you know what? It's better. I think, we're not getting too personal. There have been some shit that have really killed my, like, my ability or want to stream. They really just fucked with, like... I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, like, my interest levels have just gone... And it's not like I don't want to do it, it's just... I'm not even working on the YouTube anymore. I used to make a bunch of videos, like, there used to be a schedule. Cause like I want to do it, but like everyone else, like, sucks out all my goddamn energy before I get to it. That's also my fault for not like compartmentalizing it. It's just something I need to work on. Nafat, do you think I'm being stream sniped? Do you think that's a possibility? What's the play here? Feed Groudon, Mel me. Mel me. I'll do Groot. I'm not sure if this is gonna work. Don't hit the Solgaleo, hit the Kyogre. That would have been a smart idea. So I'm gonna hit it with the lightning. Fuck, who's he gonna for I should hit the dog. This dude wants to stall me out. Yeah, it's confusing. It's confusing what he's doing. It's gonna hurt. Jesus. So that's the play. Go, fuck it. This is bad. Oof. Do I want to? But no, I'll wait for the Pheromosa. Holy shit! Ow! Fuck you! Jesus Christ, bro. Sedge. Oh, flinches, you're right, I'm an idiot! Thank Jesus. Oh my god. The crit mattered. So mad. So bad. Thank you, Cockroach Lady. Thank you, Roach Lady. Thank you. I thought I was fog. So what are you thinking here? Okay, so this is what I got so far. I like the Comfy. I like I like the Thunderous. I like the Thunderous. I could do with a change with the Lappy or the Groudon. You use Magear now, right? Or I could just steal your strat and just steal the horse. Or the Magearna. Or, and here was my strat. I bring back Lilligant. I replace it with Lapras. I put in a, no, I bring back Indeedee. And I bring back Hatterini. And I speed swap Hatterini with a Magic Bounce. Meg. I was gonna make a Trick Room team, but in reverse. What about Slowking? I can replace Trick Room with something, but I mean, 350 special attack? It's got that Sludge Bomb. That's what the Thunderous would be for. Ooh. See, what if I give her Taunt? What if I replace Trick Room? Because she knows Trick Room on my set. She knows. What if I give her Taunt? The other thing would be Slowking. Well, with the speed swap, a lot of shit becomes viable, right? Maybe Rayquaza. Bird, Moltres is always good. I'm not sure, because this strategy relies heavily around the Melmetal. I'm not sure the Groudon is adding anything. So I was thinking maybe I replace the Groudon with a Kyogre, but a Kyogre is weak. The Groudon can at least tank a couple hits. I need a special attacker. There's a lot of chances for it to fail, though. That's the issue. Guitar? Guitar? Guitar's an attacker, though. What about Moltres? I think Magearna might be the best option. This is a Trick Room Magearna, though. What if I do this? Hold on. What if I do Magearna with Trick Room? And I do, where is she? $56, 84, let's go with 56. 408, 408, 318, 318, yeah, let's go with this one. What if we do this? Give me a Trick Room setup. It's got the speed setup here. With any of these. You got the Comfy Thunderous. To draw away. I could even replace the Comfy with a Indeedee. Or a Shroom. Indeed, would be the safer bet, right? The lead would be Melmetal, Pheromosa into Indeedee. And with Melmetal, Indeedee lead. And then Magirna or Hatterini. Or Thunderous Melmetal. Thunderous Nose Taunt. It can nuke. I think this gives me enough options. What do you think? These both have Life Orb. What item can I give Hatterini that'll help? Specs? Master Belt? The Expert Belt? Alright, let's try that. Let's go. Let's do this shit. Mew. I won't outspeed, right? I don't know what to do. Go. Ooh. Jesus. Yeet yeet. Ugh, 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 ugh. Bad play. Bad play. Hatterene might have to be a lead. And should Magirna or Thundi? Magirna or Thunder? Yeah, I think I can keep the I'm pretty sure I can keep the other thing alive for long enough. Do I outspeed? Slush Rush? Let's go another Max Quake. This time on the Sand Slash. I'll pull this out and bring in. Indeed. Ah, kind of regret not bringing in the Hatterene. Yo. Figures. Is Sand Slash a special attacker? There's no Hatterene. I didn't bring in Hatterene. How about Thunderous, remember? Is Sand Slash is physical? Okay. Oh, fuck, I forgot. Oh my god, I don't know what to do. Bitch. Yeah, get the fuck out! No!
Hickok 45 here. Have you ever wondered whether there's any difference between a... Hey, now you see some differences.
Oh, I can't hear your impulse. Body of Torkoal? Body Torkoal? Ooh.